The Latrobe Football Club. Established in 1881, a club full of history. Just think of some of the people that have passed through this club over the 144 years. Committee members, coaches, life members, players and volunteers. Every single one of these people have had a story to tell. Families that have formed the foundation of this great club. Names like Jones, Anthony, Maney, Broomhall, Jaffray and Parker. Players including Warren Smith, Coventry, Fox, Harris, Hickman, Gillard, Dixon, Butler. And more recently, Matthew Stevenson, Holland, Jeffrey, Adam Stevenson and Woodcock. And of course, the greatest of them all. G'day, Doc. This club has been the heartbeat of the town from the beginning. Everyone that has been involved has played their part. The town identifies with the club's success. Sure, we have had our fair share of hard times, but it builds character, it gives strength, and it forms friendships. We don't wear red and blue, we bleed it. This is Latrobe, and this is our story.
To ask that bloody Devonport.
Oh, yeah, bloody Devonport. Shaq. We interrupt this marriage to bring you the football season, so I've still got that.
A club like this, it invokes great passion.
Toxic. You just hear the people kick the bloody ball.
He's doing the thing. I reckon another dozen is going to.
One of Tasmania's greatest ever footballers, Darrel Baldock's impact on the Latrobe Football Club was immense. Appointed captain coach of the Demons at the age of just 19, Baldock went on to lead St Kilda to their only premiership to date in 1966. He returned to lead Latrobe as playing coach from 1969 to 72, winning the NWFU premiership each year as well as the state premiership in 1970. And during that era, what did Doc Baldock bring to the club? He's had this incredible career at St Kilda Football Club as a premiership captain. Coming from the VFL, what did he bring to set and grow the Latrobe Football Club that made it into not only a powerhouse of the NWFU, but Tasmanian football?
He was just brilliant. I remember one day at West Park, we were playing Cooey. And Ron Kingston had come across from Collingwood half-back. And he played centre-half-back on Doc. And Doc just went on the rampage that day. He flew over Kingston, he took marks, and we were sitting up at the town end watching it, and he was popping goals through and strolling in and pop another goal through. And my dad couldn't take it anymore. He got up and he walked around and he said, what a footballer. And some Cooey supporters sitting down there, all they could do was just nod their heads like that. Yeah. But when he came back here in '69, and Bill and myself, we were lucky enough to be around at the right time. And the things that he could do and the things he taught was amazing. He didn't sort of, being just the sole coach. These days they have a backline coach, a forward line coach, a coach of coaches actually. And he had to coach the whole team, the whole club. So he didn't get to coach one-on-one. But you soon heard about it when you did something wrong out on that field, and you wasn't going to do it again, that's for sure.
Very determined for himself and for you. Determined to do his best and determined to get the best he could out of you. I can remember early in the season in '69, NWFU played the TFL in Burnie, and we'd had 2 or 3 roster games, and Doc had done everything right. But this particular day, early in the game, we're kicking at a weird end into a hell of a breeze at West Park, and he just emerged from a pack of, looked like 10 TFL players, and rolled onto the left and bashed this thing into the wind. It was just unbelievable.
The year Doc come was just, the whole town was just totally over the moon. It was just, it brought the whole community together. As a young bloke then, me and Billy Harrison, Billy Dixon, players like that were just coming through the ranks. Mm. So we never ever really thought we'd play senior football, because some of the players Latrobe was getting were really good players, and now eventually I got a chance, and I thought the first time I played, my skills weren't that good. But he played me in the centre, and every game I'd know everything about the player I was playing on for a start. But he basically used me as a tagger, but he knew how to give you instructions. You'd follow those to the tilt. If you didn't, you wouldn't be playing the next week. He was and didn't have to worry about Johnny being a runner, because Doc was out there on the ground. So all the directions were pretty much coming from Doc on the ground. But he was just a champion player, but he was a great leader.
I always had to make sure I told him exactly what he said, and to do that was a job on its own, because Doc didn't mince words. Right, he said it how it was, and the runs that, like when we used to go and we call them cross-country runs and so forth. Well, I could run all day on the flat, but going uphill, I'd have to walk.
Yeah.
I couldn't run uphill, and they'd give them an opportunity to catch me, but obviously none of them caught me. They wanted to shoot me, but I didn't find this out until we had a reunion here at the footy club, and Billy Dixon come up to me and he said, everyone in this room hate you. And I did not know that until, I'd say 25 years later.
You had a job to do.
I had a job to do, and do it the best of your ability. Yeah.
Johnny Cox, he was hated because he could run at the one pace all the time, and particularly of a Sunday morning, we'd go for runs up round the speedway and back down past the hospital and back to here after playing on the Saturday. And he'd be way out in front and you was expected to catch him. And that, jokingly, we hated him, but he was a member of us.
Bill, we know that Coxie obviously loved to run, and he'd do a lot of running, lead from the front, and probably didn't please everybody. But any particular funny stories where we can maybe get one back on him?
I'm sure John will remember this. We're out at Hawley, and we'd done all the work up and down the beach, and it's time to pack it in. And Doc thought, well, before we do, we'll put Coxie out in the water up to his waist, and we'll be 50 metres up the beach. We'll run out to him, in the water, turn and run back up to the marker. So he sent John off.
So I races down and I dived in. And as I come back up, I lost my false teeth.
And he back in the water. And up he comes again. And Doc's waiting for me. I'm like, what are you doing, John? And in he goes.
The next half hour, all the players are diving in, trying to find me false teeth.
Up for the third time, Doc says, John, what are you doing? He said, I've lost my bloody teeth.
And I just guessed a gummy shark picked them up.
Yeah, yes, I think so. And he's doing the, I reckon another dozen just went down. We couldn't find them.
When it was said that Doc was coming back to the club, there was a few of them that I think Wally Clark was before him, and that there's a few still wanted Wally, but they reckoned Doc would be too dear. I think when he came back, I'm not sure, but I think it was $2,000 he come back for. And when he came back to the club, everything changed, more professional. You either trained as you should train or you didn't get a game and all that sort of thing. He was very professional because he'd just come back from the AFL or VFL, what it was then, and it changed everything around here.
He was very disciplined. And his coaching, like off the grog, there was no grog, I think, from memory after Monday night or even Sunday, especially leading into the state final against Clarence. We celebrated the grand final on Saturday night, then we had to train on the Sunday. And from that day on, he had us ready to win that state final.
One person who was a former Ellis Maney, former coach and president, and he was president at the time, we won our first premiership the first year he was back, for 36 years I think it was. And in the night, after the grand final, they drank, not that you brag about it, but 33 18s we polished off. And that's a lot of alcohol. And we kept sipping all the way through till the Thursday night the following week, you know. And we came to training on the Thursday night and Doc said, that's it, we're done. But we're all crook, everyone was still crook. And Mr. Maney, he was in a terrible mood at that stage. He was president. He reckoned we'd done the wrong thing and everything, and he called us down. This was the club rooms then, and he called us in here, and he sat us down, and we were lined up along there, and he sat over there, and he started to address everyone, and Doc stood up. He said, "Sit down, Mr. Baldock." And he went on a bit further, and Doc stood up again. He said, "I sat down," said, "Sit down, Mr. Baldock." And Doc sat down, never said another word. He really put him in his place and addressed him. And Doc had that much respect for Mr. Maney. We still call him Mr. Maney, but it was Ellis. You know, it just goes to prove what it was, the respect we had for Doc and what he had for the president. And that's what made us.
I do remember one time we was playing here on Latrobe, and he said to me, he said, "Righto," he said, "when the ball goes out of our forward line, I want you to go and tell Brian Dixon such and such and such and such." Well, I was sitting there and the ball was in the forward line for 10 minutes, I reckon. And Doc turned around and looked at me and he said, "What the effing hell are you doing here?" And I went to say, "But you, don't you back answer me, get off the ground."
He sent you off?
He sent me off the ground. And that was before half time. And one of the things I do reflect with Darrel Baldock was when we won the first premiership. He took all the players up to the top of Mackey's veranda, and there was about 7,000 people in the main street, and he introduced every player to the crowd, and then he called me over, he put his arm around my shoulder, and he said to everyone had the heart of this bloke, he said we'd have a team of champions.
Gee, that must have meant a lot to you.
That was. It was, to me, the greatest allocade anyone could give me.
One game stands out in my memory and that was a grand final against Wynyard at Devonport in 1970, and that was a very, very hard game. And I spoke to the umpire. We won that grand final, of course, and we had quite a few drinks here later. And the umpire, he was Reg Barling from Hobart, and he called in. Him and his mate dropped in, and he come over to me for a chat. And he said, "Harv, you said that was a hard game." I said, "It sure was," because I got ironed out by Max Urquhart in the first quarter and there was blood going through. And he said, "That was a hard game." "Yeah." I said, "It was." He said, "Look, I stood in the ground, in the middle of the ground with the ball, held the ball up, waiting for the siren." And he said, "I could hear this going on around me. I'll get you today. You won't walk off this ground alive." And he said, "Well, what should I do? I better bounce the ball, I suppose." And he bounced the ball and she was on from there on. And like I said, Max Urquhart lined me up early on, and one of our trainers came racing out with a towel, and he wasn't worried about me bleeding to death. He was going to fight the bloke I was playing on. And it was like that. It was just, we were able to win it. But I think that game was partly won at the selection table on that Thursday night, where they'd beaten us in the second semi, and Doc knew we had to do something. So they picked the team, and like our fullback was on the forward flank, and there were players out of position. And Wynyard probably said, "Well, yeah, we know all about this." But when the game started, we started in those positions, and that threw Wynyard off pretty badly, and we was able to get away to a lead, which we held all day.
Darrel was appointed senior coach of the Latrobe Football Club 1958. Now, the staggering thing here is, Margaret, Darrel was appointed senior coach at the age of just 19 years of age, appointed to coach men. What was that like? Because that must have been an enormous adjustment and challenge at the same time.
Well, it was, and really he was a boy and he was coaching men, and that's, you think about that and you think, oh, you know, they must have taken notice of him, I suppose, but that's how it was.
And I guess with football back in that era as well, people had a job. So Darrel, no doubt, had some work. What was his occupation?
Well, he worked for Philip Morris there once. I don't know what stage that was. And then him and a mate had a car yard with Reg Hunt Motors at Elstonwick, I think it was. He did that. But yeah, it was a different life to what they have now.
And we look back in history now, Margaret, and we think to that incredible day, 1966, when St Kilda won the premiership, and who would realise that nearly 60 years later, that is still the only premiership that St Kilda have, and Darrel Baldock was the captain of that side. What did that do? What did you see in terms of the supporters and what that did for St Kilda back on that famous day in 1966?
Well, it was a wonderful thing. You know, the fans had waited for so long. And it was exciting. Yeah, you know, they say, old people cried because they won.
Coming back to the Latrobe Football Club, were you ready as a family to come back here? And I guess once you did settle back into your hometown, that period when Darrel became captain coach was an incredible ride for Latrobe. 4 premierships in succession, a state premiership as well. Talk to us through that era and how much did it mean for the township?
Well, I think it was a wonderful thing for the town. At the time, Latrobe had a very good committee, very good men's committee, and Rex Polk and Ellis Maney and those type of fellows dealt with us, and that's how it worked. Because originally we were only going to Melbourne for 2 years. We finished up 7, so we were, you know, I was really ready to get back, and we still had a bit of land and things like that. So it was all, and I think the town sort of had a bit of an excitement about them when this was happening.
And we look back though now today and Darrel's name lives on in the memory of Tasmanians forever, and we have this incredible memorial out the front of the Latrobe football ground. How proud and how much does that mean to you and your family to see that and see how revered and remembered Darrel is every day?
It's wonderful. We love it. It's, you know, how the people, the government, all those people that helped do this, it's just a wonderful thing. And I know one of our granddaughters brings her little fellow every year. He has a special photo taken, so he's gone, you know, right through. But yes, it's lovely. And I must say, Rick Slater has helped us a lot. We've got new gardens in, which is nice. It looks really good. And the thing is, it's never had any vandalism. Not one thing. I'll go sometimes, I might pick up a Coke can or something, or a cigarette, but nothing.
Sizzle.
It says a real lot, I think.